Are you eating what you've been told is healthy, but your energy keeps dropping, your weight keeps creeping up, and every year it feels harder to bounce back? Here's a surprising truth. Many seniors who live past 100 are not eating what most people think of as a perfect, healthy diet. In fact, if you copied the standard low-fat, high-carb advice given to older adults today, you might be accelerating aging rather than slowing it down. And this matters deeply because after the age of 60, your body's physiology changes. Your muscles become less responsive to insulin. Your liver processes sugar differently. Your gut microbiome shifts. And your immune system, what we call immune resilience, becomes either your greatest protector or your greatest vulnerability. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Aging is not just about time, it's about metabolic stress. Every spike in blood sugar, every inflammatory meal, every nutrient-poor calorie places a tiny withdrawal on your body's longevity bank account. Over decades, those withdrawals add up. But the good news, and this is empowering, is that food is one of the most powerful tools we have to reverse that process. What the research shows is that people who live to 90, 100, even 110 share common dietary patterns. But they're not about restriction or deprivation. They're about daily consistency with a small group of foods that quietly activate longevity pathways. Better insulin signaling, stronger mitochondria, lower inflammation, and more robust immune defense. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of your body like a house that's been standing for 70 years. You don't need to tear it down and rebuild it. You need to reinforce the beams, clean the filters, and protect it from ongoing damage. The right foods do exactly that, every single day. And here's the part most people miss. It's not about eating less, it's about eating strategically. In this talk, I'm going to walk you through the specific foods seniors should be eating daily. Foods that support fat-burning hormones, stabilize blood sugar, protect the brain, and nourish the immune system. These are foods that centenarians around the world have in common, but explained through modern metabolic science. We'll talk about why protein timing matters more than protein quantity, why certain fats act like medicine for aging cells, why fiber is not about digestion, it's about immune longevity, and why skipping the wrong foods can be just as important as adding the right ones. And if this is helpful so far, consider subscribing. I post clear, science-backed content like this every day to help you take control of your health naturally. Because living to 100 isn't about luck. It's about aligning what you eat every day with how your body actually works. Next, I'll outline the 6 core insights we're going to cover, so you know exactly where we're headed and how to apply this in your own life. One of the strongest predictors of whether someone lives independently into their 90s and beyond is not cholesterol, not blood pressure, it's muscle mass. And this is where most seniors unknowingly go wrong. Here's what's really going on inside your body. After the age of about 60, your muscles become less responsive to protein. This is called anabolic resistance. In simple terms, your body needs a stronger protein signal to maintain and rebuild muscle tissue. If it doesn't get that signal, muscle slowly disappears. And with it goes balance, glucose control, and metabolic health. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of muscle like a metabolic sponge. Every time you eat carbohydrates, muscle absorbs glucose and keeps it out of the bloodstream. When muscle shrinks, that sponge gets smaller. Blood sugar rises more easily, insulin stays elevated longer, and fat storage increases, even if you're eating less. This is why sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, is directly linked to insulin resistance, falls, frailty, and early mortality. What the research shows is that older adults who consume adequate daily protein have significantly lower all-cause mortality and better cognitive and physical function compared to those who don't. But here's the critical nuance. It's not just how much protein you eat, it's when and how you eat it. Most seniors spread small amounts of protein thinly across the day. A little at breakfast, a little at lunch, a little at dinner. Unfortunately, that often never reaches the threshold needed to activate muscle protein synthesis. Your muscles require a trigger, especially the amino acid leucine, to turn on repair and maintenance pathways. Without reaching that trigger, the protein is underutilized. The practical solution is surprisingly simple. Aim for 1 or 2 protein-anchored meals per day, each containing roughly 30 to 40 grams of high-quality protein. This could be eggs, fish, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, legumes combined with seeds, or lean meats depending on your preference. Breakfast is particularly powerful. A protein-rich breakfast stabilizes blood sugar for the rest of the day, reduces cravings, and lowers cortisol, the stress hormone that accelerates muscle breakdown when chronically elevated. If you've ever noticed that skipping protein in the morning leads to fatigue, shakiness, or overeating later, that's not willpower. That's physiology. Now, here's an important longevity detail. Protein does not accelerate aging when paired with metabolic health. In fact, inadequate protein is far more dangerous in older adults than too much protein. The fear around protein often comes from studies in younger populations or from metabolic contexts that don't apply to seniors. Centenarian populations consistently consume moderate daily protein, not excessive, but reliable. And consistency is the key word. You don't need protein powders or complex tracking. You need a daily habit that signals to your body, we are maintaining strength. If this is making sense so far, consider subscribing. I share practical, science-based strategies like this every day to help you age with strength, clarity, and independence. Because protein is not about bodybuilding. It's about keeping your metabolism flexible, your immune system strong, and your body resilient enough to enjoy a long life. Next, we'll talk about the second misunderstood pillar of longevity, fat, and why certain fats act more like medicine than fuel in the aging body. For decades, seniors were told to fear fat, low-fat milk, skinless chicken, margarine instead of butter. And the assumption was simple. Fat makes you fat. Fat clogs arteries. Fat accelerates aging. But what we now understand very clearly is that the right fats are not the enemy of longevity. They are one of its foundations. Here's what's really going on inside your body. As you age, your cells become more vulnerable to inflammation and oxidative stress. Your brain becomes more sensitive to insulin resistance, and your hormones, especially those involved in satiety and metabolism, rely heavily on fat-derived signaling. Fat is not just fuel. Fat is information. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your body is an orchestra. Carbohydrates are the fast-moving instruments, loud and energetic. Protein is the structure and the rhythm section. But fats are the conductor. They tell the system how fast to go, when to calm down, and how to coordinate repair. When seniors remove healthy fats, the orchestra loses direction. What the research shows is that populations with the longest lifespans consistently consume monounsaturated and omega-3 fats daily. These fats lower inflammatory markers, improve insulin sensitivity, and protect the cardiovascular system, not by lowering cholesterol blindly, but by improving how cholesterol particles behave. This is especially important for the brain. Your brain is nearly 60% fat by dry weight. Omega-3 fats, like DHA, are structural components of neurons. Without adequate intake, cognitive decline accelerates, regardless of how many puzzles you do. And here's a critical metabolic point most people miss. Healthy fats slow gastric emptying. That means when you eat them with meals, blood sugar rises more gently. Insulin stays lower, and the body is far less likely to store energy as fat. This is why adding fat, not removing it, often improves metabolic health in seniors. The key, of course, is which fats. Daily longevity supportive fats include extra virgin olive oil, avocados, nuts, and seeds, fatty fish like sardines, salmon, and mackerel. These foods don't spike insulin. They actively reduce inflammation. And they support endothelial health, the lining of your blood vessels, which is one of the strongest predictors of cardiovascular longevity. Now let's talk about practicality. You don't need to drown your food in oil. You need intentional inclusion. 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil daily, a small handful of nuts, fatty fish 2 to 3 times per week. That's enough to activate these pathways. Timing also matters. Fats earlier in the day, especially at breakfast or lunch, improve satiety and stabilize energy. Very low-fat mornings often lead to cortisol spikes and midday crashes, which accelerate muscle loss and fat storage. And here's an important reassurance. Healthy fats do not cause weight gain when insulin is controlled. In fact, many seniors notice improved body composition when they replace refined carbohydrates with fats that the body recognizes as signals of safety, not stress. Centenarians don't eat fat-free diets. They eat fat-smart diets. Next, we'll move to a nutrient that quietly determines immune strength, inflammation, and even how well these fats and proteins work together: fiber. And why it may be the most underestimated longevity tool of all. Most people think fiber is about digestion, regularity, stool, gut comfort, but that's only the surface. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Fiber is not food for you, it's food for your gut microbiome. And your microbiome is not just a digestive organ. It is a metabolic organ, an immune organ, and a longevity organ. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of your gut bacteria like a garden. Fiber is the water and fertilizer. Without it, beneficial plants shrink, weeds take over, and the soil becomes inflamed and dysfunctional. When that happens inside your body, inflammation rises everywhere, not just in the gut, but in the brain, joints, blood vessels, and liver. What the research shows is that people who live the longest have high microbial diversity, and the single biggest driver of that diversity is daily fiber intake from whole plant foods. Here's why that matters for seniors. When gut bacteria ferment fiber, they produce short-chain fatty acids, especially butyrate. Butyrate acts like a molecular repair signal. It strengthens the gut barrier, reduces systemic inflammation, improves insulin sensitivity, and even communicates with the brain to regulate appetite and mood. This is not theory. This is physiology. Low fiber intake leads to a leaky gut, where inflammatory particles enter the bloodstream. Over time, this accelerates insulin resistance, muscle loss, cognitive decline, and immune dysfunction, all hallmarks of accelerated aging. Now here's the surprising part. You don't need massive salads or extreme plant-based diets. Longevity comes from daily consistency, not volume. Centenarian populations tend to eat small, regular amounts of fiber-rich foods every day: beans and lentils, vegetables, berries, nuts, and seeds. These foods gently nourish the microbiome without overwhelming digestion, and timing matters. Fiber works best when paired with meals, especially meals that contain carbohydrates. Fiber slows glucose absorption, reduces insulin spikes, and prevents energy crashes. This is one of the reasons traditional diets combine starches with beans or vegetables. It's metabolic wisdom passed down through culture. Here's a simple protocol. Aim for 25 to 35 grams of fiber per day, but build gradually if you're currently low. Sudden increases can cause bloating because your gut bacteria need time to adapt. Start with one fiber anchor per meal. Add lentils to lunch. Include vegetables at dinner, sprinkle seeds or berries at breakfast, and hydrate well. Fiber without water is like concrete without mixing. It doesn't work. Now let's address an important concern. Fiber does not block protein absorption. It does not steal nutrients. In fact, fiber improves nutrient uptake by reducing inflammation in the gut lining. This is why seniors who eat adequate fiber often need fewer medications over time. Their bodies are finally able to respond properly to food. If this is helpful so far, consider subscribing. I post clear, science-driven content like this every day to help you optimize your metabolism, immunity, and longevity naturally. Because fiber isn't about being regular. It's about creating an internal environment where aging slows down instead of speeding up. Next, we'll talk about how certain daily foods quietly keep insulin low all day long, without extreme diets, and why insulin control may be the single most important longevity lever after age 60. If there is one hormone that quietly determines how fast we age, it's insulin. Not cholesterol, not calories, insulin. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Insulin is a storage hormone. Its job is to move glucose out of the bloodstream and into cells. When that system works well, energy is stable, inflammation stays low, and the body can switch easily between burning sugar and burning fat. But with age, many people develop insulin resistance, even if they've never been diagnosed with diabetes. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine insulin as a key and your cells as locks. Over time, if insulin is constantly high, the locks become worn down. The key still shows up, but the door doesn't open easily. Glucose stays in the bloodstream, insulin rises even higher, and the body is pushed into a constant fat-storing, inflammatory state. This accelerates aging at the cellular level. What the research shows is that chronically elevated insulin is linked to cognitive decline, cardiovascular disease, muscle loss, and shorter lifespan, even in people who appear normal weight. The goal is not zero insulin. The goal is low, flexible insulin. And this is where daily food choices matter more than extreme diets. Centenarian populations do not follow keto strictly. They do not count carbs obsessively. What they do is eat foods that naturally keep insulin low throughout the day. These foods share three characteristics. They are minimally processed, they contain fiber, protein, or fat. They do not flood the bloodstream with glucose. Examples include vegetables, legumes, eggs, fish, nuts, seeds, fermented foods, and modest portions of whole carbohydrates. The mistake many seniors make is eating naked carbohydrates. Foods like toast, cereal, juice, crackers, or sweets on their own. These spike glucose rapidly, force insulin high, and create energy crashes that lead to overeating later. The solution is not elimination, it's pairing. Always anchor carbohydrates with protein, fat, or fiber. This simple habit dramatically reduces insulin demand. Here's a practical example. Instead of toast alone, have eggs with vegetables and olive oil. Instead of fruit juice, have whole fruit with nuts or yogurt. Instead of plain rice or potatoes, combine them with beans, fish, or vegetables. Same foods, completely different metabolic outcome. Timing also matters. Late-night carbohydrate-heavy meals keep insulin elevated during sleep. That suppresses growth hormone, interferes with cellular repair, and worsens insulin resistance over time. A longevity-friendly pattern is earlier, protein-anchored dinners with lighter carbohydrates, and a clear fasting window overnight. This doesn't require strict fasting. Even a consistent 12-14-hour overnight break from food allows insulin to reset and fat-burning pathways to re-engage. And here's an important reassurance. Lower insulin does not mean low energy. In fact, most people report better energy, clearer thinking, and fewer cravings within weeks because their metabolism is finally working efficiently again. Centenarians don't diet. They eat in a way that keeps insulin calm. Next, we'll talk about something rarely discussed, but critically important for seniors, micronutrients, and why deficiencies quietly undermine energy, immunity, and longevity even when calories and protein look adequate. One of the most overlooked reasons seniors lose energy, strength, and resilience, even while eating healthy, is micronutrient deficiency. This is not about calories. This is not about willpower. It's about biology. Here's what's really going on inside your body. As we age, our ability to absorb nutrients from food declines. Stomach acid decreases, digestive enzymes become less robust, certain medications further interfere with absorption, so even if your plate looks balanced, your cells may still be running short on critical raw materials. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine trying to run a factory with plenty of fuel, but missing bolts, wires, and lubricants. The machines technically still run, but they break down faster, overheat more easily, and produce lower quality output. That's exactly what happens inside aging cells when micronutrients are lacking. Three categories matter most for longevity. First, minerals. Magnesium, zinc, and selenium are essential for muscle function, insulin sensitivity, immune defense, and DNA repair. Magnesium alone is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions, yet deficiency is extremely common in older adults. Low magnesium increases inflammation, worsens insulin resistance, disrupts sleep, and raises cardiovascular risk, all quietly. Second, vitamins involved in energy and immunity. B vitamins, especially B12, are critical for nerve health, red blood cell production, and brain function. With age, B12 absorption often declines due to reduced stomach acid. This can lead to fatigue, memory issues, and balance problems that are mistakenly blamed on aging itself. Vitamin D is another major player. Vitamin D is not just a vitamin. It's a hormone that influences immune regulation, muscle strength, bone density, and inflammation control. Low levels are associated with higher risk of infections, fractures, and chronic disease. Third, antioxidant and polyphenol compounds. These are not extras. They are signaling molecules that protect mitochondria, the energy factories of your cells, from oxidative damage. Foods rich in color, such as berries, leafy greens, herbs, spices, tea, and cocoa deliver these compounds daily in centenarian diets. Now, here's the key point. Longevity does not require supplementation overload. It requires coverage. Centenarian populations consistently consume a wide variety of minimally processed foods, small portions, many colors, repeated daily. This creates micronutrient sufficiency without excess. Practically speaking, this means rotating vegetables instead of eating the same ones daily, including seafood or sea vegetables regularly, using herbs and spices generously, getting sunlight exposure when possible. When supplementation is needed, it should be targeted and modest, supporting food, not replacing it. One more critical insight. Micronutrients don't work in isolation. They amplify the benefits of protein, fat, and fiber. Without them, those macronutrients cannot do their job efficiently. This is why two people can eat similar diets and experience very different outcomes. One body has the tools to use the food, the other doesn't. When seniors restore micronutrient sufficiency, they often notice improvements in energy, sleep quality, immune resilience, and mental clarity. Not because they fixed aging, but because they removed friction from the system. Next, we'll bring everything together and talk about why the people who live the longest don't aim for perfection. They aim for simple daily patterns, and how that mindset may be the most powerful longevity strategy of all. If you study people who live to 100, one pattern stands out more than any specific food. They are not perfect eaters. They are consistent eaters. Here's what's really going on inside the body. Longevity is governed by signaling pathways: insulin, mTOR, AMPK, inflammation, immune repair. These systems don't respond to what you do once in a while. They respond to what you do most days. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine brushing your teeth. Doing it perfectly once a week does nothing. Doing it reasonably well every day protects you for a lifetime. Nutrition works the same way. Centenarians don't chase trends. They repeat simple patterns that keep their internal environment stable. What the research shows is that metabolic stability, not metabolic intensity, is associated with longer lifespan. Big swings in blood sugar, insulin, stress hormones, and inflammation age the body faster than almost anything else. This is why extreme dieting often backfires in seniors. Aggressive restriction raises cortisol, cortisol breaks down muscle, impairs immune function, and worsens insulin resistance over time. The body interprets extremes as stress, and stress accelerates aging. Longevity-friendly eating sends the opposite signal. It says, we are safe, we are nourished, we can invest in repair. That signal comes from repeatable daily behaviors, eating at similar times, anchoring meals with protein, including healthy fats and fiber, avoiding constant snacking, allowing overnight metabolic rest. None of this is dramatic, and that's the point. One of the most powerful longevity tools is a boring breakfast. A simple protein-rich, fiber-containing breakfast eaten most days stabilizes blood sugar, lowers cortisol, and sets the metabolic tone for the entire day. The body thrives on predictability. The same is true for movement. Centenarians don't overtrain, they move daily. Walking, gardening, light resistance, balance work. Movement keeps insulin sensitivity high and inflammation low, amplifying the benefits of food. And here's a critical mindset shift. Longevity is not about control. It's about cooperation with your biology. When you eat in a way that reduces stress on the liver, pancreas, gut, and immune system, the body naturally shifts into maintenance mode. Repair increases, damage slows. This is why the just eat these every day concept matters. Not because these foods are magical, but because they remove friction from aging physiology. Protein preserves muscle. Fats protect cells and the brain. Fiber feeds the immune system. Micronutrients allow everything to function. Consistency keeps hormones calm. That's the formula. And if this is helpful, consider subscribing. I post content like this every day. Practical, science-based strategies to help you optimize your health naturally and age with strength and clarity. Because living to 100 isn't about doing more. It's about doing less, better, and consistently. Next, I'll bring everything together in the final section and show you how to turn this information into a simple daily challenge you can start today. No overwhelm, no extremes, just results. Let's bring everything together. Living to 100 is not about chasing youth. It's about protecting function, metabolic function, immune function, brain function year after year. And what we've seen today is that longevity is not built on complicated rules. It's built on daily alignment with how the body actually works. We started with protein because muscle is not cosmetic. Muscle is metabolic armor. It stabilizes blood sugar, protects against falls, and preserves independence. Eating enough protein, especially earlier in the day, sends a powerful signal of strength to the aging body. We talked about fats, not as something to fear, but as messengers that reduce inflammation, protect the brain, and slow glucose absorption. The right fats don't accelerate aging, they buffer it. We explored fiber, not for digestion alone, but as a nutrient for the immune system. Fiber feeds the gut bacteria that keep inflammation low and insulin sensitivity high. Without it, aging speeds up quietly. We addressed insulin because insulin resistance is one of the strongest drivers of chronic disease and accelerated aging. Not through restriction, but through pairing foods, timing meals, and keeping insulin calm and flexible. We discussed micronutrients, the quiet enablers of energy, immunity, and repair. Without them, even the best diet underperforms. With them, the body becomes resilient again. And finally, we talked about consistency. Centenarians don't eat perfectly, they eat predictably, they reduce stress on their biology, they repeat simple patterns that allow the body to invest in repair instead of survival. Here's the most important takeaway. You don't need to change everything. You need to change one thing, consistently. So here's your challenge. Pick just one habit from today. Add a protein-anchored breakfast. Include fiber with every meal, replace refined carbs with healthy fats, stop late-night snacking, build a 12-hour overnight fasting window. Try it for 7 days. Track how your body responds. Your energy, your hunger, your sleep, your clarity. Your body will tell you very quickly what works, because the goal is not to live longer at all costs. The goal is to live stronger, clearer, and more independent for as long as possible. And if this added value, like the video and subscribe to join others who are taking control of their health naturally, using science instead of fear. Your body is not broken. It's waiting for the right signals. Give it those signals every day, and longevity becomes not a hope, but a biological outcome.